All right, good evening, everyone. We're gonna call this meeting to order. Sorry that we are a few minutes late. We're gonna start off on agenda item number 2, roll call and establishment of a quorum. Just want to. Let me turn on the mic.
Yeah, it's the talking.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I'm getting used to this in-person thing. We're gonna start off with item 2 on the agenda, roll call and establishment of a quorum, but I do want to note that Chairperson Heidi Goldstein is not in attendance tonight, but that should still leave us with a quorum. Secretary Castillo, would you do the roll, please?
Yes, Chairperson. Chairperson Zenner Davis
Here.
and Commissioner Roeder.
Here. All right, and as I said, we have a quorum, and so moving on to item 3 on the agenda. Public comments, we want to give 15 minutes for public comments, so if folks online or in the house want to make public comments, now is your time. All right, so it doesn't look like we have any public comments this evening, so we'll go on to item 4 on the agenda, approval and adoption of the agenda. Before we do that, do we have any questions, concerns, or addendums we want to make to the agenda? Going once, going twice.
I move approval and adoption of the agenda, Mr. Chairperson.
I will second that. And so it shall be. Item 5, approval of meeting minutes, and we have 2 sets of minutes that we want to approve. That would be from our March 2nd regular meeting, and that can be found on pages 2 through 7. And then our March 13th special meeting that can be found on pages 8 through 10, but we'll start with March 2nd. Before we do that, any questions, corrections we need to make on that?
I did not have any changes, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. So can I have a?
Yes, move approval of the March 2nd, 2023 regular meeting minutes as presented.
And I will second that. All right, March 13th, again, any corrections or questions about that?
Again, I didn't have any changes to suggest.
Excellent. So can I get a motion?
Yes, move approval of the March 13th, 2023 special meeting minutes as presented.
And I will second that. Moving on to item 6, reports. I want to give time for the union. If you have any reports you would like to share with us tonight.
Recording in progress.
All right, if we don't have any reports from the, oh, I'm sorry, we do. Yes, go ahead, Mildred, sorry.
Good afternoon, all. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there in person. But I just would like to share that the union is continuing on to work on the process of the hiring process. And
Hold on, Mildred, we're having trouble hearing you.
I'm sorry.
Here in the building. And we know you're not muted, so it's not on you.
Can you hear me yet?
Your audio, let's go and see if we can, get a district report, see if that's we're able to do that. No report from the district?
No, you're asking me?
Wendell,
No.
you're unmuted.
Yes, I thought they said no
Okay, so
report.
we can't hear Gwendolyn
Glendale
either.
either. We're sorry, Glendale. I think it's the same issue we're having with Mildred. We can't hear you on this side. I might propose that we come back for comment
Yeah,
and reports. Oh, can we try one more time? Glendale, can you try one more time?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
thank you.
okay, great. There
It
we
works
go.
now. Okay, and can I propose that the union report, it's out of sequence, Chairperson, but maybe the union can report after the district?
That sounds good.
Okay.
All of that to say, I have nothing to say. But thank you. I have nothing to report.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Miss Mildred, let's try you again.
See, that's what you get for not letting me go first since I was first. Not putting the district over me. I apologize, you all, that I'm not there to be, I love you, Glenda still though. I'm sorry, I'm not able to be there in person. I'm having sciatic nerve pain, so I'm not able to walk. But I really did want to be there with you all in person. You know, I try to be there in person as much as possible. But what the union would like to report is that we're continuing our work with, working with Charlie and Aaron on the list and the process, understanding the process, make sure that the process is being done correctly, and oh God, I'm sorry, you guys, this medicine, the availability list. Just the concern still with there are so many vacancies. I'm sorry, it's the vacancy list that I meant to say. The vacancy list. So working with that process, going through the merit rules. So we're really focusing on trying to tighten up the hiring process and getting the vacancy list to not be as extensive as it is. Does that make sense? So that's really, we're looking at that. And then there's some other concerns. I'm not sure if Miss Margot Wilson is there in person, but there still is a concern with that, because if we recall, and going back to October, there was a desk audit that was supposed to be done that the commission stated should, for a desk audit to happen, and that hasn't happened yet. And we're just really concerned again that the merit rules is being violated. Because now here we are in April, and it still hasn't been done, but it's literally in the minutes that this was to happen. So I'm not sure why that's being held up. And that's a really strong concern, because if the commission is saying, hey, this is to be done, then it needs to be done. So the union is not going to ignore our member and our members' needs by knowing that this is supposed to happen and nothing is happening. And then we're just constantly getting emails saying, hey, what's going on? Where are we? It's not right. So I would like to fix this situation and have it done as soon as possible. I understand that we're going through the classification study, but that has absolutely nothing to do with what was told and what was stated, and that's in the minutes that, to be done. In addition, we are having a membership meeting with the members, and we will be talking about the classification study, the concerns. I appreciate the information that was given to me from Aaron and Charlie, so I'm able to make sure that the information that we're giving to our members is true and correct to the facts. So we'll be talking with them about the next phase. And that's pretty much my report right now, but just to let you know that we're just all trying to, I know we're getting ready to wrap up the school year. I appreciate everything that everyone is trying to do. I really appreciate Izzy and Charlie and everyone else that's involved in getting the merit rules updated. It's really important. It's extremely outdated. So I do appreciate that. And that's my report. And I'm sorry that I'm kind of like all over the place, but again, medicine, sciatic nerve pain. I don't wish it on any of you.
Thank you, Mildred, and I hope you feel better soon.
Me too. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. All right, commissioners, any reports? Commissioner Roder.
Thank you. Because our agenda is quite lengthy this afternoon and evening, I'm not going to have extensive comments at all. I also want to wish Mildred a speedy recovery from her sciatic nerve pain. I know how difficult and painful that can be. I also want to take one moment to remember and honor Karen Hemphill, who passed away recently. I had the pleasure of working with Karen Hemphill when she was a school board director, and she was a intelligent, wise, and very caring person with a very big heart. So we remember her and honor her, and we will miss her. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Roder. I think the only thing that I have to add tonight is, we're coming to the end of phase 1 of the classification and compensation study. And already we're starting to hear back on some great recommendations on how to move forward. And so as we go into the next few phases of this process, I can only imagine that we're going to get even more very helpful recommendations. And it just makes me think about how important it is that the district is, I guess, committed to doing consistent and timely evaluation and assessments of all of our processes in the district. What comes to mind immediately to me are the conversations that we've had around the hiring process, and just wanting to take a look at that and making sure that we're not creating barriers, or that we have not created barriers that keep folks from being able to access employment in the district. And so I'm hoping that, as we go through the classification and compensation study, we'll also be partnering, that is the commission, the district, the union, partnering on maybe looking at bringing another entity in to look at that process. Someone who's not as close to it and as deep in it as we are, to help us look at that process and make sure that it's updated, and that, again, we haven't created barriers for folks who are looking to be employed by the district. And it makes me confident that a process like that would be meaningful to the district, just based off of, as I said, just the first phase of this classification and compensation study. So that's all I have. Personnel Director, Secretary Castillo, would you please report out?
Of course. Thank you, Chairperson. So as I always do, I'm starting off with the exams report. This exam report, you'll notice the number right away. It's almost triple what we had last month, and I think it ties into our first reading of the budget. But we had 525 exams this month. 108 were for training and experience. 262 were written. 22 were oral, and 3 were performance. So that is 525 exams. And keep in mind, we did have some rather large recruitments. We had one recruitment in particular, the admin assistant that had 81 applications moving forward. So this was a particularly busy month, but I think you'll find that in the coming months, we're going to be having large numbers of exams. I think we're full on board now at this point. In regards to hires, we had 14 hires. I'm happy to report we had one rehire. This is an employee who, Paisley, who left, resigned and came back to Berkeley, which is great. She's in human resources and we're very happy she's here. We had 9 new hires, new to the district, and 4 promotions, which we always like to see. So 14 this month, which is a large number. I've been reporting out on the class and comp, and I think that this is the first report that is speaking to some detail and some specificity regarding progress. We had in phase 1, we are in phase 1, we're nearing the end of phase 1. But we had 129 JCQs that were completed. You might remember those are the job analysis questionnaires. We sent out 499, or rather Sarah and EHA sent out 499. 46 received duplicates, 42 with were 2 positions and 4 with 3. We had a completion rate, and I'm glad Sarah corrected me. I had a slightly higher completion rate, but the completion rate that is being reported out is 29%. So Sarah was good enough to provide me with some of this information before the meeting. All but 6 classifications have at least completed 1 JCQ. The classifications, and are these all but 6? So are these the classifications that have not submitted? So the classifications that, thank you, the classifications that have not submitted JCQs are the clerical assistant 2, the IA bilingual, the custodian 2, the delivery driver, the buyer, and the storekeeper. So what that means is these classifications will be looked at and reviewed without input from the employees. That's not ideal, obviously. We saw 75 interviews scheduled. There were 4 consultants from Eric Hall and Associates. They were all done via Zoom. Invitations were sent out, and anyone who expressed that they wanted to be interviewed, we took that into account. Feedback on every job description was given, and it was either through the JCQ, the employee, or the supervisor interview. And right now, EHA is working on a second draft. We're going to be meeting as a steering committee on Tuesday. And I believe that Eric Hall and Associates will be submitting some of their findings. And phase 2 is scheduled to begin early May with employee and supervisor orientation dates, as well as a launch for phase 2 coming very soon in May. I think what we'll be seeing here at the commission meeting is some recommendations. And I have to talk, I think at the steering committee, we're probably going to mention when these recommendations are going to come. My recommendation is going to be that they happen with the phases so that the commission isn't getting, you know, multiple recommendations in November. I think that's a lot to process. So hopefully by May, or at the very least June, I'll have perhaps either I will submit the recommendations to you, or maybe they present. We haven't discussed that yet, but that should be coming before phase 2 is complete, so that we can have phase 1 recommendations, phase 2 recommendations, phase 3 recommendations. And that's it. The other things I'm going to report on are with, I think are on the agenda, but I will say in closing, you know, we have a full complement of work. We have a very dedicated staff, and we're very busy, which is great, actually. So that's my report. Thank you.
Couple of questions, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
So with respect to the examinations that were administered, certainly the administrative assistant one jumped out at me too. And, you know, the 74 training and experience tests or reviews
Mhm.
and 47 written. And you said, Mr. Executive Director, 81 applications. What do you think, to what would you attribute such a high, I mean, in the 2.5 or so years that I've been on the commission, this just really jumps out as a very, very high number of applications. What is it?
Well,
Accounts for that.
you know, I just met with Aaron today and started looking at this. So we haven't had a full-fledged kind of analysis on it because it's also very close to the recruitment. Usually you can go back a month or two afterwards to really do really thorough and accurate analysis. However, my educated opinion or guess would be that the admin assistant one, the minimum qualifications for that are a little broader than the 2s or the 3s. Also, Aaron and myself were already talking about strategies on recruitment, and I know that ZipRecruiter does 100 some odd postings. You know, so we're looking at new approaches on the posting. And thirdly, I think we're seeing a market comeback, to be honest. I think that folks are I think the fog of COVID maybe perhaps is lifting a bit, and we're starting to see very positive results and people wanting to come to work for Berkeley, which is fantastic. I hope I'm correct in all 3, because what we will see is a continuation of perhaps not 500 exams, but consistently 300 or maybe even 400 exams, if this is what we're going to see. So I don't know, Aaron, or if you want to, if I missed anything or no. Okay. So that's my guess.
Well, good. I appreciate that that answer, and my only comment would be keep up the good work. If there's you know, if there's something in the recruiting process, I know you've talked about things like social media, you've talked about additional NeoGov resources. If there's things that are you're doing right, then it would be great to scale that up and use it in even more recruitments. That's good progress.
Great.
My other question is just on the class and comp study. I think you said the completion rate on the questionnaires was 29%. Well, how does that compare? Is that considered a good completion rate, a bad completion rate? Is there anything? We're going into phase 2. Is there anything we can do in phase 2 to get a greater completion rate? How does this compare with Eric Hall's experience in other school districts in terms of their completion rates?
That question I haven't asked yet, and I plan to ask on Tuesday. For me, Commissioner, my own assessment is I wish it was higher, because I think, well, I know the feedback I've received for the last close to 2 years is how many members, classified employees, don't feel like they've been listened to, that their jobs are not accurate. And, you know, obviously 29% completion rate is not, you know, it's 30%. So that, to me, I think I'm hoping that in the next phases, we get a higher percentage and participation. I don't know if it's normal, but I'll know by the next meeting. I'll know by Tuesday. It's not a conversation I had with Jan yet. She did mention that the folks that did participate were very involved, which is good. She did mention to me that there was some really good informative interviews, and they have really good recommendations based on those interviews. But again, 30%, I mean, I don't know. I'll know more by the next meeting.
Well, the one thing I would comment, since I think Glendale is still on the call and Mildred hopefully as well, is that, and Frank is here in person, is that I think from the district's perspective, making sure that employees understand that they're encouraged to fill these out. They have time to do so. Make sure that the supervisors are aware that the employees, I know there were some hiccups about that at the beginning. I'm hopeful that those hiccups have been resolved and that in phase 2, all employees and supervisors will know how important these questionnaires are. Employees have time and are encouraged to fill them out. That's one thing. And then from the union standpoint, I think Mildred said that the union officers will be talking to the membership in the near future. I think it would be great to include the class and comp study and encouraging BCCE members to fill those out, because it's, as everybody keeps saying, it's 100% in the interest of the BCCE employees to have as accurate a job description as is possible. So I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's important.
Definitely.
And Secretary Castillo, could you just repeat again? You said there were a couple of departments that had not responded at all to.
They weren't departments, they were classifications.
Classifications, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
there were 6 classifications, have at least one completed. All but 6 have at least one completed. So there's some that did very little, there's some that did a lot, but there's 6 in particular that did none.
Okay.
I can repeat them again if you'd like.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. The storekeeper, the buyer, the delivery driver, the custodian 2, the instructional assistant bilingual, and the clerical assistant 2.
And do we have any idea why they may not have done it? Or is it in relation to what Izzy was just talking about?
I think, you know, it's a complicated answer. I think generally, you know, I talked to the union quite a bit. I think there's still some folks that don't trust. There is a contingent of folks that just said that they're just not going to do it. I continue to try to encourage folks to do it because they don't lose anything by participating. There's nothing to be lost and everything to be gained. But I'm going to continue working with the union and HR and everyone that is willing to listen to encourage folks to participate. But yeah, no, there's still folks that have not engaged, that they're not trusting of the process, or they don't want to engage. They don't think it's going to make a difference. There's lots of reasons that have been stated. And I know we're doing everything we can to try to dispel some of those notions, but to put it simply, there's nothing to lose and everything to gain by participating. If the worst thing that can happen is that you are exactly where you were before, in all likelihood, there's probably going to be some changes to your job that are more reflective, because that's why they're here. So anyway, I hope there's more participation moving forward, and we're going to do everything we can to continue to encourage folks to do that.
Thank you, Secretary Castillo. Any other questions? All right. Why don't we move on then to item 7, consent items and ratification of eligibility lists. Any questions on any of the lists here?
I did have one question. It's really just a timing question on the district services assistant. And I know we have a request for an advanced placement in the agenda as well. So this is sort of in the nature of a retroactive eligibility list, because the individual's already been hired. So, you know, God forbid we should not approve the eligibility list. But I guess how common is it? And is it just sort of a timing thing about when we happen to have our meeting and the fact that this is an employee that needs to be hired relatively quickly and that sort of thing. How common, how frequent does a retroactive list occur?
I don't think it's very common. But if I'm predicting the workload moving forward, we are going to have more exams, we are going to have more lists, and we are going to have the pressure from the school district to hire as quickly as possible. So this may happen again. I don't know that it's very common, but we do meet once a month. And, you know, in this particular case, it's a shorter list, quicker interview. So I don't know. I don't know that it's going to be very common, but we may see it happen more just in terms of frequency and numbers. If we have more lists and more interviews, it may happen again, but I don't see it happening a lot.
Well, I guess my only request to our chairman might be that if that is going to happen, maybe we have a special call meeting. We had special call meetings, I recall, to approve lists where there was a need to hire somebody quickly. So it's not new. And I think just as a matter of practice, since we're not potted palms here, we do need to approve the list before the individual is hired as a general proposition.
Good idea.
Pretty obvious.
Well, I might propose in the interim, we can, if we know that there's going to be a meeting, for instance, within a week, we might hold on to that. But if there's a hire, you know, and we know the meeting is 3 weeks away, I would propose two things. One is use some time in the special meeting to approve a list, because we have our special meetings and they are official meetings. Or secondly, that we maybe delay it just a bit so that we don't have this issue come up again. But I would definitely encourage the commission to use the special meeting time, because then we have not one, but two opportunities in a month to have you approve the list before we hire someone.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, Aaron had a comment.
Oh, Aaron, please.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify, though, that the commission is approving these lists, but the director is able to certify the candidates on the list before it goes to the commission meeting. And so it often happens where somebody will be hired before it goes to the commission meeting, and that's in our rules. So folks can be hired before the list is even approved, because the director is certifying the list beforehand, and otherwise we probably wouldn't get a lot done. And it hasn't occurred very often where there's a problem, you know, with doing it in that order. There's also some candidates who are not willing to accept a job offer until they know whether their step advance request is going to be granted. And in those cases, we do want to speed up that step advance request and take it to a special meeting. But usually our candidates will accept the job and then are willing to wait to hear from the commission whether the step advance has been, you know, approved.
Great.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
All right, so if there are no other questions or concerns with the list, can we get a motion to ratify the lists?
Yes, I move to ratify the lists that are contained in item 7, lists A through I.
And I will second. The ayes have it. And we will move into item 8 on the agenda, the conference items. And I will hand it over to Secretary Castilla.
And Chairman, before I move into the conference items, I might want to point out, because we have the discussion item number 9, I may want you to dog ear the page 20, which has the list that may come up in conversation so that it's easily accessible to the two of you when the time comes.
Noted.
So agenda item 8A, this is a request for advanced step placement for Jenny Lee. She has already hit the ground running. I know that I've been submitting overtime and out of class timesheets to Jenny, and I haven't met her in person yet. I hope to and go up there. I don't want to enter unannounced. Sometimes that frightens folks. They want to know why I'm just showing up randomly. So I do plan to meet her, but you'll notice her credentials are far beyond what's necessary for the step 5 placement. You know, when we do recruitments like this, especially for HR and payroll, the expertise level for public sector is something that we are so, to use an unused word, desirous of, because it's very hard to teach. So, you know, she was at the City of Hercules, West Contra Costa School District. So she has both the city experience and the West Contra Costa. She understands how these systems work. And she has the hands-on mechanical knowledge of how it works. So I strongly recommend step 5 for Jenny because she is absolutely the type of employee we are trying to attract. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I don't really have questions. I want to agree 100% with our executive director and point out that, you know, I serve on the district's audit committee, so I have firsthand knowledge of how important the payroll specialist position is and how difficult it is to recruit for that position, because the qualifications are very specific for that. So I'm 100% in agreement with a step 5 placement for Jenny Liu.
All right, great. And I have no questions or comments. I co-sign on everything that's already been said. So can we move, can I have a motion to approve a step advancement to step advancement 5 for Miss Jenny Lee?
I would so move.
And I will second.
Great. Thank you.
All right. On to conference item 8B.
Great. So this is for Shayna Rush. You know, Shayna is someone who's extremely responsive. She's patient. She's great with the public. She's always greeting everyone with a smile and with patience. You could not have a better person at the front. But that said, this process for advanced placement isn't based on how great the employee is performing. It is designed to look at the previous experience for the advanced placement. While I agree that you can draw a nexus between Ms. Rush's experience and this job, the experience isn't exactly what this job entails. It's slightly different. Very similar skill sets, but different. I wanted to make sure that I recognized Shayna's current time here and her previous time in serving in the position, where it's her work has been exemplary. So that's why I was recommending a step 2, because that's supported also by the documentation. So that's my recommendation. Thank you.
Any comments, Commissioner?
Yes, thank you. I do have a comment, and I agree with what Executive Director Castillo just said. It seems to me in reading over this that for sure, in my opinion, a step 4 or a step 5. She's asked for step 5.
She has-
Step 4 or a step 5 would be an overreach because her prior experience, although relevant, is not directly related. It's not in the public sector. It really doesn't have that close relationship. But with that said, I would say, though, that her service and experience as a host in restaurants, having that kind of customer service background, and it's extensive. It's 13 and a half years of that type of background. And just reading some of these recommendations, I don't want to take too much time, but I just think it's tremendous what the owner of the Palmetto restaurant said. He says that as a host, Shana has had to navigate an endlessly varied variety of unprecedented challenges and has done so with unmatched poise. She has had to enforce mask mandates, figure out how to politely ask for proof of vaccination for entry, explain limited capacity dining, all tasks that had never before been part of a restaurant work, and did so with such professionalism that I never failed to be impressed. That's a high recommendation indeed, it seems to me, under a very difficult circumstances. So I don't know what we want to do with this one. I certainly agree with at least a step 2 advance. And Mr. Chair, I'm sort of leaning toward a step 3 advance if you see fit for that.
So I will say that, impressive letters of recommendation. And, we always tell our kids and anybody that will listen, my wife and I, you should probably spend some part of your life doing customer service in either retail or hospitality, because that will prepare you for a slew of other interactions in your professional career. And it sounds, and especially under the conditions of COVID and having to deal with folks and masks and getting, proof of vaccination, that, just her ability to be able to navigate that alone says a lot about who she is and how she operates. Secretary Castillo, could you maybe just give us an idea of how, kind of have an idea, but it might be better just to kind of hear it out loud. The difference between her duties that she's doing now and then her duties in that customer service role in hospitality, just where are those places that they kind of part?
Were they part or the nexus or both?
Both. Yeah, let's go both.
Well, I know my own experience, and I'll speak to Shana's and myself because I was in the service industry for about 9 years. I think what Shana obviously navigated, I didn't have to deal with masks, but that is definitely a conversation that's difficult. So that prepared her for folks that are walking in who don't have their kid at the right school or whatever it is. Managing the difficult conversation and remaining patient, and having someone who's very, very upset, and then having that person walk away, and then having another person who's not upset not see you upset or recovering from that. So there's a very short amount of time in which you can recover from one phase to the other, because the second person, that's the first time they're seeing you, even though it's your second person. She does that well. And then to have the wherewithal to not only respond in the moment, but to be accurate with the information. It may seem trivial to get a drink wrong, but any one of us who's gotten the drink or the wrong food, it's not pleasant. So that's where it's similar. I think where they are different is not just the actual facility. Shana walks in, this is a public building. It's a taxpayer paid function. She's now a civil servant, so she's not responding to the nice owner of the restaurant. It is now a civic responsibility. So in that type of scenario or different, that's a big difference. Another difference, I think, is although a menu may change and a seating order may change, or a function or a catering party may change, the consequence is that if I gave you the wrong food, I can bring you a new plate of food. The responsibility that Shana rests on Shana's shoulder, that she does so well, but if she's giving a parent the wrong information, now that has a much more significant consequence. So really, we're looking at the civil responsibility, and then the consequences of the wrong information. So that, I think, it carries a lot more weight. There's more gravitas behind her current position. And that's, I think, those were the main differences I saw.
And I find myself leaning in the same direction as Commissioner Roeder. And I just wondering from your perspective, why you think a 2 is better than 3, or more not better, more appropriate than 3.
I think, you know, I don't mind saying this in the meeting, but I did say it to Shana, and I've said it to folks, where I feel that it's a 3 would be great, but I'm restricted by the documentation, and I have to be a stickler. I can't take liberties with the documentation that I'm provided. So, you know, when I'm counting experience and I'm counting numbers, I can't take the liberty to add anything sorry. I can't take the liberty of adding an extra, 6 months or 7 months, because my process is a little bit more analytical and document centric. If I take liberties with one employee, the question then it's obviously asked, well, why didn't you take liberties with another employee? That said, the commission has the authority to do more than I've recommended. It always does. And I take no offense. I think that's great. I think whenever you, as a body, have thought that I wasn't recommending enough and you recommend more, I take no offense to that. I think it's great. But I am restricted and held to a more scientific or calculated or less passionate opinion, given that I have to do this for potentially, 600 different folks.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Secretary Cedillo. All right. So any other comments?
No, if we're ready for a motion, I would move that Shana Rush be placed at advanced step number 3, effective, I guess it's tomorrow or whenever the appropriate time is.
And I'll second that.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to conference item 8C.
So this item, I should start by saying that I now that the process is where it is now, where I'm making a recommendation to you, I want to start by saying that this recommendation is slightly unconventional. You may remember that when we started, when the Class N compensation project was approved back in October, the union had asked me to look at Mashurn's case because it had preceded the approval, and I agreed. I think what I will say that I didn't already say in my written recommendation is that at the end of this process where we are now, it has demonstrated very, very good faith on the part of the union. It's demonstrated very good faith on the part of HR, and I can say good faith on the part of our office. We were always working towards solutions, even when we didn't agree. And where we find ourselves is I am not convinced that there is a job that currently exists that would capture accurately not only the substance of what Ms. Shern is performing, but all of the details and all of the work that she's being assigned or taking on so that the office functions moving forward. That said, I think that the closest approximation is indeed the student admission specialist. And where we found ourselves was in a place where an approximation isn't always ideal. And we also had a component of home visits that needed to be performed. So there is an agreement between Human Resources and the union in regards to Ms. Shern. Ms. Shern understands that this is still going to be looked at by the class and comp folks. And that it's probably in all actuality, probably result in something slightly different or a job description, obviously, that captures everything. That said, I am recommending it in the interim because she is already getting the out-of-class pay. This was an effort, again, by three different entities to try to arrive at a place where the employee not only felt supported, but felt that there was a description that was more accurately representing what she was doing. And that's the background with the recommendation. And again, I think that it should be noted again that this was not done solely by me. This was a partnership between the district, the commission, and the union. And I hope there's more solutions that are unconventional to come, because this was definitely an unconventional solution, given I won't say strange, an unconventional situation. And lastly, what I will say, because it describes kind of the situation this particular employee is in, Ms. Shern, the office also needs to be looked at. And I think the class and comp folks are going to be looking at the entirety of the office and the function to make sure that it's that all the descriptions in that office are right. So that's what I would have to say about that. So if there's any questions, please.
And I think we have a question from Mildred.
It's a question for me or a comment? Do we want to unmute Mildred?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Hi, Mildred.
Hi. I just wanted to add to this, and I just want to say that the union definitely supports the reclass for Ms. Shern, and we have been working really hard in trying to make sure that we support and get this done. So it was definitely a partnership with Charlie, the Human Resources, and myself, so that is accurate. What I do want to make sure that I state is that it is really that department in a whole that I really want the commission to listen and understand, because working through this process with Ms. Shern's reclass and having the opportunity on many occasions to visit that office and talk to the other attendance specialist, admissions specialist. I apologize. That office is overworked. And that department truly, because that's one of our main departments, that's a department that gets our students into the schools, right? Their admissions. And I'm overwhelmed just thinking about all that I saw, all that I witnessed, and speaking to them. And that department really does need the support. So of course the union is going to force in the classification study that they really take a good look and really understanding how that office operates and how they are understaffed. Ms. Shern has been working out of class, doing the work of an admission specialist for many years. So I'm grateful to see that this is finally happening for her. And I will put out there that I hope that with this reclass, she will be reclassed and on a step 5, because she has been doing the work entirely too long, in addition to doing the admissions work for as long as she has. She does other things outside of her job descriptions as home visits and things like that to make sure that she is supporting that department in a whole. Like this woman is really, and the thing about it is that we also need to look at is with these home visits, the safety part of when she's visiting these homes. Do we know where she is? Do we know what's going on? Is there someone following? I mean, there's another part to it, but the point I'm making is that she's doing it.
Mhm.
That's the point I'm making. So I do appreciate the fact that she has been getting out of class pay until this has been brought to you all. And I am, again, the union is so supportive and is grateful that it's finally happening for her. But I really do want to push that that department, and I heard their cry when they asked me to make sure that the commission is aware of how they're understaffed and the support that they truly need. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mildred. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's a lot going on there. I do have one question for you, Secretary Castillo, and it's actually just a grammar thing on the last paragraph of page 1 of the attachment. It says, I am also committed to working with HR, the union, and the district to create a job that accurately reflects the current duties. You mean job or job description?
I missed the word description. Thank you. That's not going to be caught by spell checks. You could tell I write my own letters when these things happen. So sorry. Thank you for catching that. And I'm a little embarrassed, but thank you. Yes, I meant description.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rhoda?
Yes, I guess a couple of things. I think firstly, this is a complicated situation. This is not simple at all. So I want to commend the district. I want to commend the BCCE officers and others who worked on this. I want to commend Executive Director Castillo and Ms. Bivens for working together cooperatively to reach what seems to be a good and creative solution to a difficult problem. So you did a great job in a difficult circumstance. I think for me that were we not having our class and comp study right now, I would probably be saying, no, we need to create this job description. In addition, create this job. It's both a job and a job description that fits the circumstances that Ms. Bivens is in her position. But because we are in the midst of our class and comp study, that would be the appropriate vehicle for creating that job description. To address a couple of the things that Mildred mentioned, and all of them are 100% on point, I think. I think as Mildred, as the union, as others are aware, our role as the Personnel Commission is limited. Our role, it's more than appropriate, I think, for whether it's Mildred or whether it's Jocelyn or whether it's Frank or whether it's anybody else to come before the commission and raise the issues that they raise about problems that the employees are facing by the district, from the district. I think that's entirely appropriate. How much we as a commission in each of these circumstances can do about it. It's budgeting season. So the district is going through its budget, and certainly in the superintendent's budget advisory committee, the union very much participates, and probably that's the best venue to bring up these kinds of problems that exist, because it's ultimately a budgeting issue. So that's one thing. I have the other thing that really the commission, it's perfectly appropriate, but the commission can't really do anything about it, and that's the safety concerns. You know, home visits by their very nature are gonna potentially present unsafe situations, and we care about the safety of the classified employees and of every employee and the students and everybody else. And that's absolutely critical. What the commission can do other than, you know, sort of talking about it, I'm not entirely sure. But one thing that is within our purview, and I hadn't thought about it until Mildred mentioned it, and that's the advanced placement. What step will, assuming that this reclass is approved, what step will Ms. Bivens be placed in as a admissions specialist?
Well, normally what I do is it's going to be no less than 5%. You know, I use the very next, what would be the next step. So assuming she's in step 5 now, I would see what step 1 is. If it's less than 5, then it's going to be step 2 and so on. But that's the mechanism I was going to proceed with. Unless. Right.
Never gone above 5%. No, I guess it's something, you know, we've been talking about advanced placement in promotional situations where
Right.
somebody is promoted, and we've said, well, that's a lot like being newly hired into that position, and therefore we would review. It wouldn't be automatic, but we would review like we would a new hire, an advanced placement in that situation. I'm not sure that a reclass is that much different. I don't know. I haven't thought about it until Mildred mentioned it. It didn't cross my mind. But were Ms. Bivens to request an advanced placement, you know, it's something I think to think about. But again, I'd have no idea the outcome.
Well, I don't think we ever have gone under those circumstances above the 5. Like I said, if the next step is, you know, less than 5, then I would go
Right.
to 2.
For
but
sure.
that's been our past practice.
But that's the floor.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for entertaining my questions.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a unique situation. And, you know, as Commissioner Rhoda did, I, you know, commend the district, the union, and Charlie, all of you working this out so that we are even at a place where we can even start to even think about what a step advancement might look like. And I think, again, you know, this is one of those situations that really brings home why we needed this classification and compensation study, right? Because, you know, just reading your report here, it was kind of like this was a position that was thrown together out of need, but no one ever decided to sit down and actually create a role so that it made sense, you know, and at the end of the day, we need the classifications to make sense. We need the work that people are doing to not only make sense, but make sense so that they can be compensated appropriately for the work that they're doing. And so, again, just thank you all for coming to this agreement and finding some way of putting a description, a role together that accurately identifies the work that's being done. With that, if we have no more questions or comments, do we want to make a motion?
Sure. So I will move that Ms. Bivens be reclassified as recommended by the executive director to student admissions specialist. It says pending a final analysis and recommendation from EHA. I assume that means she's going to be reclassified as admissions specialist, and then that position will be looked at by the, but there's nothing, I mean, if this motion passes, she is going to be reclassified as admissions specialist.
Yeah, and the intent there is to not go backwards, obviously. I mean, they may look at our recommendation and say, yes, that's exactly where she should be, or they could change that job description, or they can give her a whole new one. But the idea is to not have her in the student welfare, which is way farther off than this one is in terms of her duties.
So again, my motion is to approve her reclassification to student admission specialist.
And I'll second that. All right,
Do you think we could take 5 minutes?
we could definitely take 5 minutes, Commissioner Roder. We're gonna take 5 minutes, so that means we'll be coming back at 5:43. All right, and we are back live and direct. Want to continue on the agenda. We're moving on to consent item 7. I'm sorry. Conference item 8D, the Personnel Commission budget.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is the first reading, so I'll just speak to what you will find in the attachment in terms of what we our ask is in terms of bullet points or topics. We are asking for a 0.5 admission, a 0.5 admin 3, which would be a new ask, a new position. The request is consistent with the workload. It is consistent with the increasing workload, and it is definitely consistent with the commission's position of executive director. It is consistent with the practice of the executive director having at least a assistant to help with the calendaring, the memos, the minutes, in our case, and all of the workload. So that's one, that's the staffing request. We've proposed an increase to our professional development travel budget. They're kind of going together. With COVID, the COVID phase, thankfully now we're moving out of it. We are seeing the opportunity for job fairs, for professional development, for speaking at conferences, attending conferences, professional development. And we definitely want to commit to that, not just for staff, but commissioners as well. You will also see an increase in professional services. Now that we're meeting in person, you know, we have Joe assisting us tonight. That's one good example of the commitment we're going to need over the course of the year. Our technology line has also, we're proposing an increase there because many of our laptops are coming up on the 4-year, 5-year cycle. So we're going to need to replace those. You won't have to do anything with mine. Mine's on the 2-year cycle. So maybe we'll look at mine for next year, but we are going to need staff laptops, for example, and probably some equipment for commissioners as well. Many of you are, I know Heidi's going on year 5 or 6. So, you know, we're accounting for all of those things. And looking at the budget, we are, I will say, and I could speak to this at the second reading a little more in depth if it comes up, but I've been here now for 2 years. I have been able to gauge and almost measure the workload. It has increased as we see continuing success in many of our areas. For us to continue to improve on partnerships and some of the things that we want to do, we will need the resources that I've mentioned. And everything can be justified and looked at and measured mathematically or accounting wise or whatever we need to make sure that we have a successful commission, goals and program moving forward. So this is again for the first reading. So that's why I'm presenting it tonight for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Castillo. Commissioner Rhoda?
Sure. A few questions, Secretary Castillo, and so I have a few questions and then just a general comment. But so just going down the list, first, I noticed that for the human resources tech, the 0.5 FTE, that one actually went down by about $6,000. What accounts for that?
Sorry, go ahead, Aaron. I defer to Aaron on this one.
Sure.
So last year when we presented the budget, we projected it at a step 5 just in case. But the employee did not start at a step 5. I believe they started at a step 2 or 3. So it wasn't the same amount in the end.
Understood. Okay, thank you for that explanation. And then I'm completely understanding and in agreement of the half FTE for the administrative assistant 3. I guess I'm wondering how much of a role is expected for the administrative assistant 3 in the class and comp, the furtherance of the class and comp study. I know that the position has been very active in that study up to now. And, it's not over yet. And it won't be over even in November. So how much of involvement does that position have in the comp study?
Well, you're correct, Commissioner, and the work for classification and compensation will go beyond Eric Hall and Associates, because the goal going back to the proposal was to train us to make recommendations to you using many of the same tools. It was intentional to hire a admin 3 to help with this project for a few reasons. One is we wanted someone who was very diligent, good worker, very on top of everything to manage and help manage this project, and someone that no one knew and didn't have history, so things can go a little smoother, if I'm being completely honest. And so far that's worked out really well. Sarah is in that position now. She is on the list. There are no guarantees, right? I mean, but the intent to keep that position moving, not only through completion of this project, but moving forward, is definitely the intent, because we've realized now that we have folks like Erin not spending her weekend doing minutes, where I'm able to meet with principals, we're able to calendar things, we're able to perform functions even outside the class and comp that have opened our eyes up to all of the tremendous potential that this position can contribute, not just with class and comp, but all of the other areas. Of course, we hope Sarah is successful and we're able, but this position is not submitted with any particular person in mind, but rather the function and how the function can proceed moving forward. And the admin 3 specifically is at a level where they can write, they can do minutes, they can respond to emails, and they can assist everyone on the team in some capacity, which would be the intent and design behind all of it. So.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, and it's sort of a follow-on from what Chairman Zander Davis said at the beginning of this meeting, is everybody, the Board of Education, I think BCCE,
Mm.
others, teachers, parents,
Mhm.
they all want more and more efficient and better recruitments
Mhm.
and testing and quicker turnaround times and all of that. And I think we all agree with those desires,
Mhm.
but the resources have to exist in
Mhm.
order to accomplish that, because without those resources, it can't happen.
That's right.
And I'm reminded of a lot of times, my friend Ty Alper, who was on the school board of education, would often say, there's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes that isn't as obvious as things such as teachers and classroom, and the idea of keeping cuts as far away from the classroom as possible is a great goal,
Mhm.
but you cannot starve the HR operations
Right.
and the personnel commission and accounting and payroll if you want the organization to operate smoothly. I think people forget that sometimes,
They do, yeah.
but it's important. Okay, then this item here that's 4350 other supplies. Am I understanding this correctly? The reason that went up by $3,600 is because for some reason commissioner fees got included into that line item and deleted from being a separate line item.
That's my understanding as well. I
Okay.
think that it was assigned incorrectly, so that it had to be reassigned into the
Okay.
correct funding source.
Okay, but it's a wash. And then lastly, on this list, the recruiting and advertising, that does jump out as a being certainly from a percentage standpoint,
Mhm.
but absolute dollars also
Mhm.
a pretty high increase. And you've explained a lot of the additional costs associated with better NeoGov, social media, things of that nature. Is that the reason for the increase?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is completely by design. I think we know enough now to know what we don't know. So we do know that there are some avenues that we haven't pursued. Again, job fairs, new advertising, all of these things cost money.
Yeah.
And, we are going to be very aggressive about that in the coming year. But that was the increase.
Okay. And so my last comment is just, and we're doing this, I guess we'll be looking at it again next month at our meeting. I would say, last year when we did this budget process, at the end of the process, I believe we promised the business office, Assistant Superintendent Follensby, that we would be coordinating, that you, the executive director, would be coordinating with the business office so that they're not taken by surprise, so that they have an opportunity to also provide their feedback with respect to our budget. So I would urge you to please reach out to Assistant Superintendent Follensby and whoever else is needed to make sure to coordinate that, because we did make that promise.
Yes, and I invited her as recently as yesterday to today's meeting, or at least to attend. So no, I have been involving her as much as I can. She included me in the budget submission process, and we've engaged there, but we haven't met in person. But no, she was invited tonight, and I absolutely plan to invite her to the next reading. So she's been involved as much as I can involve her in. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just have one question and it is on the testing. Just looking at that and the proposed is 10,000 and that's 2,300 less than last year. Can you just explain why we decided to propose less than we did last year?
Do we remember? I don't remember exactly. I think it had to do with we're doing some of the testing now remotely more than before. And that's going to continue. I think that, you know, if we're going to spend more on the advertising, we're probably going to do a lot more remote. I'm looking at Erin because I think she's not looking at me saying no. So I think that's the right answer. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Secretary Castillo. All right, so then I guess if there are no more questions, comments,
Can I make one more comment?
oh, yes, sir.
No, to add to what Commissioner Roeder said, and he said it very, very well, which is, you know, I come up here and I am prepared and I have the information I need and I do the things I do, but it wouldn't happen without the staff that aren't always acknowledged and seen, and Olga, Brian, Aaron, and Sarah. So no, you are absolutely right. Now that, I mean, the general theme here, and I want to say just one more time, the general theme here is that now we are preparing to take this to another level, and that does require staff and resources. And I think it was a very good point, and I just wanted to reiterate that that's exactly what this is about.
Understood.
Thank you.
All right, Frank, you have question, comment? Yes, she does. You don't have? Okay, so we'll go Mildred and then Ms. Diggs Ray.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I felt like nobody was seeing my hand raised and I didn't want things to go on and I was unable to be heard. So I have some concerns in talking about the budget, and my concern is talking about the creation of another position in the commission. And just looking and listening, I'm just looking at the fact that I know that the executive director position used to be a dual position, which when I mean dual, I know that it was half HR and half PC, and now it isn't that way anymore. So I would think that would mean that is, I don't want to say less work, but if it's no longer dual, I really want us to just really take a look at that, because in looking at the job description for our executive director, a lot of the duties that are in the job description is now in HR. So I'm not sure why another admin assistant is needed. So, and if it's a consideration, is this position going to be correctly posted this time, to where because the last time it wasn't. So I just, you know, again, this is going back to where we're talking about processes and how things are done. I just want, before we really just approve adding another position, I just would like to maybe have some desk audits done or something looked at before we just add another position that I really don't see as needed. And if we're talking about adding more admin assistance positions, I do understand that it is different budgets, but I see that position more in admissions department than I do in the personnel commission. So I'm sorry, I'm just being honest. I just don't see it as a need or as a must as much as I see it, you know, again, in admissions, but I just don't see the work there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mildred. Ms. Diggs Ray.
Yes, I'm concerned, and I apologize because for some reason my computer, the volume is not up, but I thought I heard Charlie say that they wanted someone who wasn't known. Is that correct? And I'm wondering if that is true, why would you want someone that isn't known? Why wouldn't someone who has been on a list or wants to promote be considered for that position?
This was a temporary position, so I was speaking specifically to the project, the class and comp project.
Okay, so once the class and comp project is gone, then that position will be gone?
It wouldn't be temporary anymore. It would be, there would be a 0.5 permanent position assisting the commission office.
Okay, but you haven't given anyone that's already employed a chance to apply for that position. Am I correct? And again, I apologize. You may have said this, Charlie, but my volume is very low. So I apologize if you already said why it would be someone who's there and not someone being able to apply for it.
I've never said no one could apply for it. We plan to go through the regular process for this position if it's approved, like we would any other position.
Okay, so then that means once the comp study is done, then Sarah is done? I'm confused with that.
Well,
that
it's not
concept.
Sarah is right now, and I don't want to make this about an individual, but Sarah is right now in a temporary capacity. If Sarah, like anyone else, if she, we open this up to transfer and to anyone who's in the district who wants to apply for it, and we follow the same process. And again, if Sarah's on the list, which I believe she is, she should interview if her ranking comes up. I mean, we're treating this recruitment, or we would treat this recruitment like any other. I think that you might have misheard or didn't hear my statement in context, which was, you know, we wanted a fresh start and a clean start with the class and comp, and someone to assist me and our office with that project. And it was in a temporary capacity as long as the project exists. What I'm proposing is to have someone help us with the trainings that we want to do, with all of the recruitments that we want to do, with the minutes, with all the things that used to require temporary assistance, overtime, people staying after work, me staying after work, all of these things that we wanted to do under normal circumstances. If we wanted to do more and meet the needs of the district, then that's why I was asking and I'm requesting a 0.5 admin assistant 3. But all of the recruitment policies that we follow for every single recruitment for anything are going to be followed, and they're going to be the same.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
I think also just, I just want to just make also clear that some of the reasons that Secretary Castillo mentioned for needing this role, I think that, again, and it kind of goes to what Commissioner Roeder was saying, there's a lot of sausage making that happens behind the scenes. And if you're not witnessing that sausage making, then you're not privy to how much extra work is being done by folks who are in, you know, roles, having to stay overtime, having to work on the weekends. And so what we're really trying to do is make sure that we're alleviating a lot of that, and also allowing for a position that is going to help support those other individuals in their roles. And so I think that as we're, you know, going through this process and looking at this, I think it's just important to keep that in mind.
Can I make one additional comment, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
And, you know, I would say, sort of, not exactly the flip side, but kind of the flip side is that if we're providing these additional resources, and if we know what it is that we would like to accomplish as a commission, then I think we should make sure that, in point of fact, we're accomplishing the goals that we want to accomplish. Equitable tests, solid recruitments, fast turnaround, many of the things that Mildred was talking about, which is, you know, the sort of the organizational, the vacancy list, all of these things that we've been talking about that we want to accomplish. if we provide the resources to accomplish them, then I would say we better make sure that we're actually accomplishing them.
Right. Absolutely. All right, any more questions, comments? So then can I get a motion to move on to the next steps, which are the public meeting, and then is it
The second reading,
the second meeting? Yeah,
that's going to be at the May 4th meeting.
at the May 4th meeting.
Yes, so moved.
And I second. All right, and then final conference item E, the Personnel Commission meeting dates.
So this is for your consideration. And we did meet and Vice Chairperson Goldstein's not here tonight, but we did roughly go through this attachment and the dates before. So this is again just for your consideration and approval. It's the 23-24 year. You'll notice that our meetings would change from Thursday to Wednesday. And the reason for that, the last Wednesday of every month is a date that we were able to secure in this room. This, of course, does not include our special meetings, but this is for the regular meetings for 23 and 24 on Wednesdays, the last Wednesday of every month.
And Secretary Castillo, just so everybody are reminded, or maybe we haven't even talked about this in this full meeting, but can you just give a idea about why we chose the Wednesday as opposed to sticking with Thursdays?
So this room is not only used by appropriately by the Board of Education, but it's also used by the city. And there is also a third, I'm not remembering, but a fourth group that is city affiliated that also reserves the room. So through Sarah's efforts with Lauren and Aaron's efforts with Lauren, we were able to find a consistent date that wasn't being booked. And Wednesday, there's no conflicts. It was either Wednesday or Monday. And I thought Wednesday was probably a little bit better day for everyone. Mondays tend to fall on weird holidays and things. So that's why we chose the last Wednesday of the month, because there's no conflicts with any of those groups. And we can secure the dates moving forward. I don't know if there's anything you want to add. Is that right? Okay.
Great, thank you, Secretary Castillo. All right,
Yeah, I don't see any problems with these dates, at least not at this point. It's kind of far out into the future. So I would move approval of the monthly meeting
Well,
schedule.
Sorry, we have a hand up.
we have a hand up.
Oh,
Aaron, come lately.
I think we just want to see if you can decide though between the 13th and the 20th, because we put them. both
Oh,
there at the-
yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for highlighting that. See, this is the sausage making, right? The three of us missed that. So the 13th or the 20th, I think that we were leaning on the 13th because the 20th was so close to the holiday. I guess I would propose, since Vice Chair is not here, that maybe we say the 13th now, but we obviously have enough time to change it at a later date if we needed to, but the 13th is the one that I think we were proposing because it was earlier in the month. It's not the last Wednesday, but 20th was unrealistically close to the end of, and folks might have plans.
it's fine.
Yeah, I'm good with the 13th.
Okay, so I guess based on that, I would say I move to adopt the monthly meeting schedule for 2023, 2024 with Wednesday, December 13th as one of our meetings.
And I will second that. And there it is.
Thank you.
All right, on to conference, not conference, I'm sorry, agenda item number 9, our discussion item, District Personnel Commission, and we are going to get an update about the Washington Elementary secretary.
Yes, so I might want to point your attention to page 20.
Mhm.
And everyone may remember that I had to speak before the board on this matter. Miss Jones is on the new list. I think Miss Jones was in an acting capacity in that position. We had reminded everyone that we have a process. It's an open and transparent process. Everyone can apply. Obviously, Miss Jones did. Right now, you'll notice that on the list, there are 3 bilingual candidates. And we are waiting for Sylvia Mendez, the principal there, Ms. Dukes, to make a decision. And then we will send over the list to Washington. And you'll notice Ms. Jones is the promotional candidate on the list. So there should be no obstacles in Washington's way at this point when the time comes.
Excellent. Any comments?
Sure. A comment, there's probably no one from the parents of Washington School who are listening to this meeting. Maybe there are, but seems doubtful. But sort of don't want the wrong impression to be adopted from Ms. Jones being number 1 on the list as a promotional candidate. And the parents and the teachers at Washington School and the principal certainly had every right in the world to advocate for an employee that they thought was the most qualified employee to be hired in that secretarial position. And, no question that they did so, and they could do so. But with that said, that's not why Ms. Jones is number 1 on the list. Ms. Jones is number 1 on the list because the rules were followed. She applied for the position. She tested for the position. She did well, which is great. And she's number 1. And Frank is here, so he will undoubtedly correct me if I say something wrong here. She could still be bumped. That may not be the right word, but if a transfer candidate were to apply, that could happen. As our executive secretary has said on a number of occasions, there are no guarantees. We don't guarantee positions. We guarantee a fair, equitable process.
Right.
That's all that we can do. So, I think the morals, to be taken from this story are, we have to improve our communication.
Yes.
Between the district and it really isn't very much the Personnel Commission or its office, but the district communicating that there's going to be, and being proactive, that there's going to be a job opening. The person who is in the best position to know that there's going to be a job opening is the principal. Principal is the first person to be aware of that, and the principal can reach out to people to apply. There can be mentoring opportunities and things of that nature for employees before they take, the exams. There are all sorts of ways to improve the process, but nonetheless, as a merit district, we have to follow the process. We cannot simply listen to very well-intentioned parents who come and teachers and come and say, well, pick this person. That's just not how it works. And if it did work that way, that could be quite abusive. And we talk a lot about excellence and equity in our processes. We need to follow that. So I'll get off my high horse, Mr. Chairman, but I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Commissioner Roeder. I am seeing Miss Denise. Actually, are there any more comments about this? And I will say that I am glad that it worked out the way that it did. I will co-sign on everything that Commissioner Roeder said. I think it's very important. Those of us on the commission, those of us in the district, we are the holders of the information. We are the keepers of knowledge of the process. And when we are uncertain of that information, when we are uncertain of that process, it is very important that we get solid on that, because we're the community facing, right? And if we get it wrong, and then we get parents involved and they get emotionally involved the way we all get emotionally involved in things that concern our children, we find ourselves in places that we don't need to be if the communication was there, if knowledge of the process was not only known, but also followed. And I just hope that going forward, we can make sure that those lines of communications that need to happen, especially when it comes to staff placement and staff hiring, that all of that does not get ignored, because it is very, very important. And when it gets ignored, it can lead to some uncomfortable situations that can be avoided. And we want to try to avoid those uncomfortable situations as much as humanly possible. Now you got me on my soapbox. All right. With that, I see that Ms. Diggs Ray has had her hand up. And I'm sorry, Ms. Diggs Ray, I'm trying to watch two screens and I missed your hand. So I'm not exactly sure when it came up, but please go ahead and make your comment or ask your question.
Thank you. My hand came up when the commission was talking about the change in the date for the meetings.
Oh, okay.
My question is, how are you going to inform the employees of this change of date? Everyone for the longest has been on a Thursday, and I understand the reason that you guys want to change, need to change, which is fine, as far as I'm concerned. But how do you inform those that are not here and those that don't have access to the computer to see when Erin puts out the agenda and the minutes? How will you inform employees? My suggestion is that the commission send out an invite. There's a lot of employees that know nothing about the commission, know nothing about the commission meeting. And since you're changing the date, this would be a perfect time to inform everybody. And my real concern is, how will you do that?
No, that's a great question. And I think that you're absolutely right. I think that, this is an opportunity, I think, in order, to be able to get more people informed about this meeting and hopefully get more attendance in this meeting. Secretary Castillo, any thoughts about what Ms. Diggs Ray is proposing?
Well, yeah, but before I get to my thoughts, I would like to answer Ms. Diggs Ray's question with a question. Denise, if you would indulge me, what you said an invite, what do you think would be the best invite for those who do not have computers or are not getting the emails?
I would suggest sending out a formal paper document to all the classified employees, because there are a lot of new classified employees that know nothing about the Personnel Commission, and there are old employees that don't know that the dates will have changed. So this is a way of you explaining who you are and explaining that the date has changed to, I mean, I understand it's paper. I understand that. But a lot of employees don't have access to computers every day like I do as an admin. So this would be a time to let people know who you are, what you're about, and what's happening. That would be my suggestion.
Can I just ask a quick question as well? Is there, Ms. Diggs, do you know if they're like in the old days, right? Everybody got a paycheck, right? And you could like staple some sort of a notification to a paycheck because everybody was going to get a paycheck. Now we can't do that because a lot of people have direct deposit. Are there other, I don't know, documents that go out on a regular basis that we know every classified employee gets that we could connect that to?
Unfortunately, no. That was the good thing about the paper paycheck, because there was the announcement from HR all the time attached to it.
Mhm.
And even with the paychecks now and any other, most communications we get, and I understand and agree, we wanted it to be computerized and not have all this paper laying around. But every now and then you have to provide for your employees and do paperwork. I mean, that would be my suggestion. Is this would be a good time to let people know who you are,
Mhm.
what you do, and when the meetings are going to change. There's a Berkeley classified bulletin that goes out, but again, that's electronic. A lot of people don't get that as well.
I think it's a good suggestion, and I'm going to make every effort to send something out. I think I might bend Mildred's ear a little bit and Frank's and Jocelyn's on how to get that out to BCCE for starters. And then I'll talk to Aaron about doing that as well to see what would be the best way to send that out as one big mailer to make sure everyone gets it. But thank you, Denise. I think that's a great suggestion. I appreciate it.
All right, so we are now at agenda item 10, public comments. So we're going to give 15 minutes for public comments. If there are anyone who would like to make a public comment, now is your time. Ms. Diggs-Ray.
Yes, I would like to make a public comment about the safety of the school, the district, and staff and employees. I hope that the recruitment of safety officers, I understand, I worked in HR and I understand recruitment is sometimes hard, but safety officers are being overwhelmed. So they're calling out sick because they are overwhelmed. So I hope that HR can do more of a recruitment for safety officers, because there's no sub list. There's no sub list. And even if there is a sub list, who trains them? A suggestion was brought to me that if a sub list is created and they have a safety officer who can be called a sub safety officer, they can be with the regular safety officers for a day or two and get some kind of training, rather than having a sub list. I call you and then I throw you into the water and you sink or swim. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diggs-Ray. Any other public comments? Going once, going twice. So to item 11 of our agenda, next meeting. All right, so we have a special meeting scheduled for April 20th. And that will be here No,
So because of the availability and the very strict availability of this room,
126.
126 will be used for the special meetings.
And so that will be from 4:30 to 7:30. And again, that is on Thursday, April 20th. And then our next regular meeting is on May 4th. And that will be here at the boardroom, 4:30 to 7:30, or when we get the work done. All right. That is it for this evening. Thank you, everyone who joined us online and in person. And hopefully, yeah, maybe we'll start seeing more folks in person. But until the next meeting, April 20th, good night, everyone. Thank you all for your participation.